I will explain in this video what a supraspinatus or rotator cuff tendinitis of the shoulder is and what its symptoms and causes can be. This is a common problem, shoulder tendinopathies. They almost always affect the same tendons of the rotator cuff, and specifically within the rotator cuff, which is formed by several muscles, but fundamentally affects the supraspinatus muscle and supraspinatus tendon. This muscle, this tendon, is what we see on the screen. This is the scapula. Scapula, humerus, and clavicle. Well, this muscle that we have is in the upper part that then passes like a kind of tunnel and emerges towards a bony prominence that is the greater tuberosity. We see it in a shorter camera, removing that muscle. Its function is to pull the humerus from the greater tuberosity inward and upward and cause that rotation movement. That is, the upward rotation of the humerus, of the arm. But when this muscle starts to not function properly for the reasons I will explain later, this extension begins to be of worse quality and not only rotates on itself, but also starts to rise upward, favoring the rubbing, the impingement of this greater tuberosity and its insertion of the tendon on this bony ridge, the acromion. This would be the impingement syndrome, subacromial impingement sign. Why does this dysfunction of the shoulder lifting mechanism occur? Obviously, there are always traumatic factors. A fall on the elbow, on the hand, or on the shoulder itself, a hard fall while skiing, for example, can cause a strong impact on the humerus, causing the tendon to tense suddenly, pull, and tear. This will be a traumatic factor, and then there will be microtraumatic factors, that is, doing arm work for many hours a day throughout life puts a lot of strain on the tendon, this muscle ends up getting tired, and then the elevation of the shoulder is done with poor quality, and that process of impingement, wear and tear, fraying, and inflammation of the supraspinatus tendon begins. But there are also other reasons that are not traumatic or microtraumatic, such as visceral origin. Specifically, the right shoulder has a strong relationship with the liver and the left shoulder has a direct relationship with stomach malfunction. I am talking about malfunction, not pathology, but rather about function. This liver malfunction, for example, can cause crystallized toxins, uric acid, salicylic acid, calcium, to accumulate preferentially in this joint in the shoulder, which can cause microcalcifications that sometimes are visible or not visible on X-ray but can increase inflammation in that area and cause more friction. This metabolic factor is very much related to the liver and can affect both shoulders, although the right shoulder is more frequently affected. Then there is the purely visceral factor that can affect this liver malfunction on the right or stomach on the left. It can have several effects. Firstly, it can cause a blockage in the lower cervical vertebrae, and this blockage on the right side, if it is the liver, or left if it is the stomach, can cause the musculature that reaches from the neck to the shoulder to malfunction. This means that any movement involving the elevation of the shoulder is defective and causes friction. This would be a factor of cervical origin. A second factor would be that the liver on the right or stomach on the left can cause the anterior muscles, the pectorals, to be too tense, as a reflection of the malfunction of these organs. And when this pectoral muscle is too tense, the opposite muscle that does external rotation, the rotator cuff, is also very tense in a stretching position, and it malfunctions. That will be the perfect breeding ground so that as soon as you have to force your shoulder in any activity of daily life, this inflammation occurs and is very rebellious to local treatment only, for example, with anti-inflammatories and with few massages because the problem is not only the shoulder itself, with its cervical component and its visceral component. I repeat, the liver on the right side, the stomach on the left side. And when we talk about dysfunctions, we talk about poor nutrition and we talk about stress, specific emotions that affect the liver, such as tension, anger, or the stomach, which is the obsession with work and not disconnecting from work. Each organ with its specific emotion and nutrition can end up affecting its homolateral side on the shoulder joint, causing this tendinopathy of the supraspinatus, without there having been a strong acute trauma or repeated microtrauma throughout life. That is, without the need for aggressive shoulder work. It has happened many times in people who have been, for example, a school teacher or any other profession that does not use the arm, and yet, they end up with supraspinatus pathology often linked to this dysfunction of these organs. In any case, if you want to know more about rotator cuff tendinopathy of the shoulder, what natural medicine treatment may be more appropriate in terms of medicinal plants, nutrition, exercises that you can do for the shoulder, you have it all here on this OnSalus Health.